Yo, what's up guys, it's your boy Sami here. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto has a god sealed in him, part 7. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's get into the video. Naruto's new island 2 months later. Naruto was taking a break from his training for lunch when he felt a massive charcass surge from an island he could just see on the horizon. He figured it must be a battle between the rebels and the Mizukage's forces. He didn't want to get involved in the war, only to see its progress, as were the parameters of his mission, but he still wished there was a way to stop the senseless killing. He was going to let it be until Kurama told him that Isobu the Sanbi was there. If he was going to use one of the Biju, as nothing more than a means of war, then he was going to step in orders be damned. He quickly threw a Hiraishin kunai, as far as he could at a 45-degree angle, and flashed to it. Then threw it straight at the island several more times, until he landed on the sandy shore only a few hundred yards from the battle. He moved closer to try to see exactly what was going on, making sure to mask his presence, even going as far as activating his Kamo seal to render him invisible. When he got there, he saw what could only be a massacre. Thousands of injured and dead shinobi were laying everywhere. Destroyed buildings of a village he never knew existed were smoking a few miles off. He could tell that although whoever lived in the village had been able to push the Mizukage and his forces back, they were losing badly. He watched for a short period of time, only a few minutes, before it came down to 3 people surrounded, and pushed up back to back waiting for an incoming attack. The Mizukage in his 3 tails form was standing there, as well. From what Naruto could make out, they were demanding a surrender, but the 3 didn't look like they were going to take it. He scanned the battlefield, and noticed that the dead ninja were very disproportionately Kunoichi. Almost 8 to 1. Confused, he decided to get a closer look. As he got in close, he noticed that the dead were not wearing mist forehead protectors. They instead had a flower on them. He didn't know of any village minor or major that used such a symbol. His blood boiled. Yugura had gone so mad he attacked another village, thinking that they were helping the rebels. Looking again at the 3 that were surrounded, he noticed 1 had the flower symbol, and 2 had the mist. After a short pause when it looked like they were going to be killed, Naruto decided to intervene. He would not let this go on. Kurama had said Isobu was the laziest of them all, and would never allow his vessel to use him in such a way. Deactivating his seals to allow him to move at full speed towards the group. "What are we going to do now?" asked the one with the flower symbol on her forehead protector. "I don't know, pray for a miracle," said the woman with the mist forehead protector. The lass was too scared to speak, and just stood there shaking. Yugura in his Biju form raised his front foot, and prepared to crush the 3 who were too exhausted to move out of the way. As he had like front foot on the Sanbi sped towards the group, they closed their eyes, and waited for death to come. Instead of death, they felt a pain in their guts, as they were swept up, and carried 50 feet to the side. Opening their eyes, they realized that they were being held by 2 men in identical black wolf masks. The one carrying 2 of them had one sling over his shoulder, and another under his arm. "Stop this, Yugura. Your madness has gone far enough. Attacking a village that had nothing to do with your petty civil war is a step too far. I will not allow you to continue," spoke the man in a deep voice that had no fear in it. The 3 were stunned, along with everyone else there. All of a sudden 2 men in cloaks and a black wolf mask appeared, rescued them, and were staring down the Mizukage in his Biju form, telling him to stop. The 3 that were surrounded were completely blown away. This might be the miracle they prayed for. The few sensors that were there were really confused. They never sensed their approach, and still couldn't sense them now. "Do you think you are trying to command the Yonde Mizukage? I am the ruler of this land, and I have sentenced all the bloodline Kun to die. This village was going to give them aid, and, as such, are enemies of Kurigakure. If you interfere, I will have you killed, as well whoever you are," raged Yugura, speaking in his beastly tone. "For now, just call me Wolf, and I will not let you continue your slaughter of innocent people. This attack constitutes an act of war on a foreign land, and I won't stand for it. My mission was only to observe, but that was before you slaughtered the ninja of a neutral village. For that you will face punishment. That's it, I am going to kill you along with them," the Mizukage loudly declared while trying to smash the whole group again in a thunderous strike that shook the ground. When the dust settled, and he saw his quarry standing in the original place before dodging the first time, he became enraged, and tried to smash them 3 more times. When it was clear that the 2 men were too fast to hit, he pulled the hand like a foot back. The 3 survivors, the wolf and his clone, were beginning to fear they would suffer from whiplash. They were thankful to them, but figured he was just delaying the inevitable. "Final warning. Leave, and allow the injured to be treated or face my wrath," Wolf spoke calmly. Everyone gathered couldn't believe the man was threatening an entire army by himself, and many started to laugh. The Mizukage included. So be it. Only his passengers heard him before they felt like they were being sucked into a void. Kumai dimension. When the world stopped spinning, they found themselves in a very different place. It was completely flat, and had what looked like metal tiles for a floor. There was no sun, but they could still see just fine. When they looked around they found tens if not hundreds of the wolf-masked men appearing with Heart Ninja and Kunoichi that they began healing. It was then they realized that it was not two people, but just one person that had rescued them. It also meant that he was from Konoha, as he had to be using their shadow clone. But to see it used in this way, and on this scale, spoke volumes to the amount of chakra this man had. Seeing no way out they choose to help where they could, having no idea of how to leave, and also sensing that this was for their own protection, rather than for imprisonment. Konoha Hokage's office. Hiruzen was waging the ever-ongoing battle with his paperwork when Wolf appeared in a swirl in his office. The hidden Anbu almost attacked until they recognized who it was. They were also in shock, as to just how he appeared in the office when he was supposed to be out of the village for months. Hiruzen gave him the critical look before. "Wolf, what is the meaning of this?" he asked very seriously. "I am a shadow clone. I was sent to ask permission for some drastic measures," replied the clone. "And what measures would this be?" "The Mizukage is in his fully transformed stage, and has attacked a neutral village outside of Water Country. I don't recognize it, but they use a flower as the village's symbol. He has killed at least 1,000 civilians, and several hundred ninja." Hiruzen could only gasp at this. Attacking a village such as this could spell the beginning of another war. He has an army of close to 1,500 with him, and if not stopped he will kill everyone there. I have other clones treating the wounded, and more still evacuating the remaining civilians away from them, but if not stopped they will be pursued, and killed. I am asking for authorization to do what is necessary to prevent more losses of civilians. When I arrived only 3 ninja were even left standing to defend them. 2 of whom I assume are part of the resistance, as they wear mist headbands. What do you believe is necessary to prevent the losses? Hiruzen, now fully aware of the situation, had a good idea of what was coming, knowing Naruto was going to do something big to make an impression. I want to end the civil war in Kiri. How? I am going to kill the Mizukage and his entire army if need be. This was spoken with a solemn tone showing he clearly understood the weight of his actions. Hiruzen sat for several minutes contemplating the situation. Is he truly mad, and beyond saving? No. He is being controlled through the 3 tails. Someone with the power to control a Biju has him in some sort of way, and I don't see a way to break it before something terrible happens. This statement shocked Hiruzen to his core. It was just like the night Naruto was born. He could see now why he wanted this path. Very well. But you must spare any of his army who surrender after he is dead. Understood. Hi, and with that the shadow clone burst. One of his Anbu spoke up. Hokage-sama, it may not be my place, but did we just declare war on Kiri? Yes, and no. You don't know wolves like I do. He wasn't really asking for permission. He would have done this anyway. If he succeeds we may actually get a new ally in Kiri, but if he fails he is not wearing his official mask, and we can disavow his actions. He never does anything without thinking. That includes the safety of this village, and innocent people wherever he goes. Kami helped him. After that his office was silent waiting to hear the results. Real world. Wolf had swirled away with the last 3 standing defenders, only to reappear behind Yugure between his army and the village. After creating enough shadow clones to assist the one who was still breathing, they started to warp the survivors away, just as the army turned to him. Rumors ran through the ranks. No one had seen him move, and then all of a sudden there were hundreds of him only for them to swirl away with the injured the way he had the original 3. A few of the higher-ups recognized the shadow clone technique including Yugure. What right does Konoha have in sticking its nose in Water Country's affairs? Your daimyo shall hear about this incursion. You may have started a war with your actions today. Yugure threatened. Wolf was totally unaffected by this. There are a couple problems with your observations there. First, we are not in Water Country right now. Second, you attacked an independent village that had shown you no aggression. I wonder if your daimyo will support that decision. He could see a small amount of worry on the faces of who he assumed were the shinobi commanders. His head dropped a little after his shadow clone from Konoha popped. Lastly, you won't be leaving here alive. With that Wolf's hands blurred to the horse symbol, and with the call of Kaiten Great Fire Annihilation, a great wave of fire was propelled at the army. Dozens were forced to use walls of water lest they be reduced to ash. Even Yugure is his 3 tails state, and was forced to use his coral wall to escape injury, such was the destruction wrought by the. When the steam cleared, at least 100 of the mist army were nothing but ashes, and dozens more injured. To my world. The clone approached the 3 who were trying to help one of the less injured. I need to speak with you 3. His tone left no room for argument. He turned first to a woman with a flower sign on her forehead protector. She had black hair, and green eyes wearing a rather revealing. Who are you, and what village is this that Yugure and his army attacked? My name is Shizuka, and this is Nadeshiko village. She went to say more, but he had turned to the redeeded. What is your name, and why are you, and the frightened one here? Yugure seemed to be after you. Not liking his tone, but not seeing, and choosing to answer, my name is Meiturumi, and this is Shijiro. I am the leader of the resistance. I came to ask for help or possibly just supplies, but followed by Yugure. He attacked before I even made it to the village gate. Shizuka, hearing this, was furious. You mean you let that monster here? It has killed hundreds of my people, and most of our ninja force. I am sorry, I had no idea this would happen. I don't know how he found us. I only told a few people where I was headed. We must have a spy in our midst back at our base. Still angry, but understanding it was not intentional, she turned her attention back to Wolf. And who are you? I appreciate all the help, but where are we, and what about my village? You may call me Wolf. We are in a safe place, and that is all I will say on that. I currently have clones leading your people away from the fighting. Fighting? Mei asked. Yes. As sad as this day has been for you, he looked over to Shizuka, then back to Mei. After seeing Yugur's actions, I have decided to end Kiri's civil war and kill Yugur and his army. Congratulations on winning your war. What do you mean to end Kiri's civil war? We have over 3,000 shinobi, and Yugur brought a third of his. How are you going to end this by yourself? I have my ways. It will be over shortly. And Wolf puffed away, revealing himself to be just another shadow clone. Real world. The Mist Army couldn't believe the power of the attack. They had been expecting Yugur to simply handle him, but even their leader was forced to defend himself. The Leaf Ninja stood there, as if he had done nothing, showing no sign that he was even short of breath. Many were considering retreating when he charged. Wolf jumped on top of the three tails of Yugur and landed a punch as hard as he could. The force caused the ground under him to buckle, temporarily trapping the three tails while he went after the army. He started with the commanders, hoping to create panic in the ranks so they would flee. Pulling out his sword, he removed the heads of some of them before the rest could gather their wits and attempt to defend themselves. The first that actually managed to block his sword soon found himself flying backward due to the force of the blow. Wolf dodged a strike aimed at his throat and retaliated by stabbing the offender in the chest with his blade and giving it a sharp twist before pulling it out. This continued until Yugur managed to pull himself out of the ground. Enraged, he began charging. He aimed it at Wolf, who was still engaging the main force he had brought with him. Not caring about his own men, he fired. Wolf had felt the buildup of chakra and knew very well what was coming. When it launched, he saw the army retreat as fast as they could, hoping to get out of the way. The 1,200 that were left, that is. He didn't even move. He just activated his kumai and watched the explosion in awe of the destruction it had wrought. He had heard of this attack from Kurama, but had never seen it. He now realized the true scope of it and how he had attacked the village from so far away. When the dust finally cleared, Yugur had killed over half of his remaining army. Wolf, however, was standing in the middle of the crater that was made, looking completely unharmed. This came as a shock not only to Yugur, but also his remaining army. I told you. Madness. Wolf said, looking at the remaining ninja while motioning to Yugur. Yukage was willing to kill hundreds of you in the effort to stop me. Why would you follow such a man? Do you not see that what he has done here is the same he has done to Kiri? Turned on his own men. Killed the bloodline ninja out of fear without regard for who else died. Just like he has here. Stand aside and allow me to end this so you may once again live in peace and make Kiri whole once more. The Mist Shinobi seemed to pause and take in his words, while Yugur just stood there bewildered by what had happened. This man had survived his most powerful attack and didn't even look fazed. He also appeared to have turned his own men against him as they slowly lowered their weapons and moved back. Wolf saw that the shinobi were retreating and turned his attention to Yugur. Now he could concentrate on figuring out what was going on with him. His Kamui would protect him, and his strength could slow him down, but truly injuring him enough to force him out of his Biju state would be tough. He came up with only one idea, and he had never used it before in battle. Kurama, having heard what he was thinking, asked, "Do you really think you can pull it off?" "Not like I have a lot of other options at this point. Let's just hope it works." Creating over 100 shadow clones to distract Yugur, Wolf sat down in the lotus position and began concentrating. Before long, a powerful storm began to move in. Lightning flashed, and the sky grew dark. Wolf releases a ball of what appeared to be electricity, continuously curling in on itself into the sky. It quickly made its way to the cloud bank. When it reached the clouds, a bright flash shot through the entire cloud bank, lighting the ground below momentarily. It was at this time the last of the shadow clones popped. Wolf noted that just as he suspected, they could slow him down, but made no real lasting impact. He stood and started going through the 45 hand signs that were required for his technique to work, finishing them in just over 3 seconds, which left him with no time to spare to look into Yugur's, and said, "I am sorry, Sobu. It's the only way. Forgive me. Raiden. Kirin." A huge dragon that appeared to be made of nothing but lightning appeared. All the shinobi gathered were in awe of a man that could command lighting to such a level. No sooner that it appeared, it flashed to the ground as fast as lightning and struck the Mizukage in his three-tailed state. The power of the explosion blew most of the remaining army off their feet and temporarily blinded them. Wolf simply activated his kumai and lowered his head in a moment of silence and prayer. He knew the man would be vilified even though he was being controlled. Telling anyone the truth would not be helpful. The anti-bloodliners say only a bloodline shinobi could do such a thing, and while they would be right, they would ignore the twisted logic it would take to think a bloodline shinobi would want to destroy all other bloodline shinobi. When the dust and smoke cleared, there was only the very damaged remains of the Mizukage. He was dead, and the Three Tails free to reform at a later date. Wolf took no pleasure in this. He decided now would be a good time to bring out the uninjured people. Kumai Dimension. Mei, Shizuka, and Shijuro were sitting with some of the now healed survivors, discussing what was happening when a clone of their rescuer approached them. It is done. You have won. Before they could ask questions, they felt the same strange swirling sensation before they found themselves deposited on the ground in what looked like a wasteland. They couldn't believe their eyes. Of the 1500 ninja Ygure had with him, less than half remained, and at the bottom of a huge crater was Igure's charred and damaged body. Mei looked at Wolf with a mix of fear and gratitude. Before she could speak, he addressed her and Shizuka. You don't have to say anything. Just take care of your people and make your nations whole again. I would prefer that you keep my name out of this if you can. With that said, he turned to leave, stopping briefly to look back at everybody as the rest appeared in swirls being deposited on the ground. I'm sorry for your losses. I should have come earlier. Goodbye. With that, he appeared to simply fade from view. Mei spoke first. Who was that? I don't know, but I do know that I don't want to be on his bad side. Shizuka spoke aloud. Her thoughts, however, were on a different path. Is he the one? He is strong enough to defeat me, and he is truly a good man. Perhaps when the village is stable I will seek him out. Hokage's office. Konoha. A swirl was once again seen in the office. When the wolf appeared this time, he appeared as if he was carrying a heavy weight. Hiruzen knew that feeling. Doing something you should never have to do for greater peace and prosperity. The old man spoke softly, but sternly. Ygure is dead, and the Three Tails will be reforming in the area in around 3 years. Of approximately 1500 shinobi, only 600 still stand. Most killed by Ygure himself in order to stop me. The leader of the rebels was among those saved. Her name is Mei Tsurumi. She will most likely become the Mizukage. After a brief silence, Hiruzen spoke. Is that all? Hi. Very well. I received word from Jiraiya. Naruto's inspection is finished. He threw him a scroll. This is Jiraiya's location. Meet him there in 3 days. Dismissed. As Wolf stood to leave, the old cage spoke again. I know it's hard, but just remember all the people who will still have their loved ones because of your actions. And that war is hell. War isn't hell. Wolf responded with a sullen voice, making Hiruzen's eyes whiten a little. War is far worse than hell. There are no innocent bystanders in hell. War is full of innocent bystanders. Hell, apart from the top commanders, almost the entire human price of war is made of innocent bystanders. With these words, he left. It was time to return for real. Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto Uzumaki silence. Right, as Iruka went to move on, Kiba spoke up, as was the case about once a month. He's not coming back. Knowing him, he is probably dead in a ditch somewhere. That loser is never coming back. Kiba's frustration had been growing the last few months. Even with Naruto gone, all his attempts to woo Hinata had failed. She would just politely decline any time he tried to approach her. Kiba, we've had this discussion several times already. He will be back. If anything had happened to him, his name would be removed. It's been over 8 months. Even if he does come back, he will just be even further behind. I guess that doesn't matter though. It's not like he was ever going to graduate in the first place. If he did, he would just get himself killed on his first real mission. The entire class quieted down during Kiba's little speech until Hinata couldn't take it. Kiba, shut up. It was spoken in a cold voice that they never heard her use. It was enough to worry some of them. If you must know, I got a letter from Naruto-kun last week, and he will be back in 2 or 3 months, depending on how long his return trip takes him. You really got a letter from him? Iruka asked with curiosity. He would never voice it, but he had been worried about Naruto as well. Knowing that she got a letter meant that he was still alive, and well, at least up to last week. Yes. He sent it along when his sensei sent a report on his progress. He will be rejoining us next year after a break. It was more info than she really wanted to give, but some people just would let it go. Progress. Kiba snorted. He will still be the weakest in class. Got that right, mumbled Sasuke, but was still hurt. Given he is getting one-on-one help, that may no longer be true, stated Shino in a monotone voice. I don't know Shino. I like Naruto and all, but he would have to come a long way to really make up the difference. Chaoji spoke between mouthfuls of chips. I don't care if he is, I will still pound him when he gets back just so he knows his place, Kiba boasted while smirking at Hinata. He still wouldn't even be a challenge, stated Sasuke with just a hint of self-satisfaction. Hinata meanwhile had had enough, and lost her temper, and decided to put the boys in their place. Iruka-sensei, I would like Kiba and Sasuke to be my sparring partners today, said Hinata, shocking the whole class. Kiba was one of the best in Taijutsu, and only Sasuke could reliably beat him. To want to fight both seemed just crazy. Hinata. I can't allow that. We don't start mixing the boys and girls sparring until next year, and you won't start training to fight multiple opponents until you become a genin. That's okay, I asked for this so you won't have any liability in it. Iruka just nodded and turned to Kiba and Sasuke. Do you accept this? Kiba only nodded and smiled while Sasuke just answered with HN. Finally, I will get to show her who is really the top dog around here. Kiba thought while Sasuke was indifferent. Hinata wasn't a fangirl and never bothered him. If she wanted to be embarrassed, he wasn't going to stop her, but he also wasn't going to enjoy it. Later, academy training grounds. Everybody was looking forward to the match between Hinata, Kiba, and Sasuke. They figured it would be a blowout because Hinata hadn't really shown much promise. Word had spread, and a few other classes had shown up, including her cousin Niji's. He was eager to see her full. Despite carrying the same seal he did, at least to his knowledge, she was free. He had heard how hers was used too soon, and it ended up being faulty after a second strenuous use later on. Not to mention she had been banished. Another form of freedom he would never get. For this he hated her. Surprisingly, he only hated her father for what happened to his father. His father had spoken out against the elders when they were trying to recapture Hinata, and had refused to help track her down. When they tried to use Niji's seal as a means to force his compliance, he had attacked the elders, and had been killed with his seal. This display had pushed any others that were asked to do as commanded without question. This match will be Hinata versus Sasuke and Kiba. The only reason I have allowed this despite my better judgment is because Hinata herself requested it. The same rules, as always, shall apply. Kiba and Sasuke ready. Getting a nod from both of them, he turned to Hinata. Hinata ready. Instead of answering right away, Hinata closed her eyes and brought her hands into the seal and whispered training array. Kai, but no one heard. All the teachers felt a considerable change in her chakra. It was not on a level higher or equal to most of theirs. She turned to Iruka, who was still staring at her dumbfounded, and said ready. Still in a daze, Iruka started the match. Hajime Iruka called as Kiba charged at Hinata, and Sasuke circled around. When Kiba got close enough to her, he threw a quick right hook to try and catch her off guard. She simply ducked under it and rotated her body, planting her right elbow into Kiba's stomach. He doubled over in pain while she quickly turned to deflect a punch from Sasuke before jumping to the side to create some space. The whole class along with Iruka had been watching closely, and only Iruka and a few teachers noticed how controlled and precise she was. There was no wasted movement, and the blow was aimed such that it came up under Kiba's diaphragm, making it hard for him to breathe, and she never even activated her Byakugan, but still was fast enough to sense Sasuke's punch and deflect it in time. After Kiba regained his composure, he regrouped with the now agitated Sasuke. He charged again, this time more cautiously with Sasuke beside him. He took quick jabs and kicks trying to find a way through Hinata's guard, while Sasuke filled any openings that Kiba made. Iruka was surprised too. With her being removed from her clan, there was no one to train her. But here she was dodging Kiba and Sasuke like it was nothing. Sasuke, who had started the match thinking it would be an easy victory, was quickly becoming angry. No matter how fast and how coordinated he was with Kiba, which was surprisingly good, they still couldn't get through. Kiba went for a leg sweep, and when she was forced to jump over it, Sasuke tried to catch her in the air. She simply grabbed Sasuke's wrist and used it as the leverage she needed to pull herself out of the way. They separated again. After gathering themselves, Sasuke charged while Kiba circled around. Instead of dodging this time, Hinata opted to block Sasuke with a look of apathy in her face. Naruto was far harder to fight even with his weights on. Sasuke saw this and began to lose his cool. His moves became sloppy. Kiba decided now was a good time to strike. He charged in from behind, hoping to catch her off guard. Him and Sasuke both went for full-strength punches straight to the back of her head and face. Waiting until the last second, Hinata, all the students, Kiba and Sasuke included, disappeared while Sasuke and Kiba ended up hitting each other in the face. When they looked around, they found her finally in a stance across the ring from them. They charged. The boys were losing steam, and Hinata had not even broken a sweat. I will have to thank Naruto for the seals. I could never have done this before. It's like they're moving in slow motion. Finally, having enough dodging, Hinata caught a wild haymaker that Kiba threw in his exhaustion. She then proceeded to pull Kiba forward off his feet and deliver over a dozen quick blows before he was thrown back and landed outside of the ring. At the same time, she kicked Sasuke in the stomach, forcing him to double over in pain. After Kiba was taken care of, she quickly moved behind Sasuke and kicked him in the same direction, making him land right next to Kiba. The rest of the students were floored. Hinata had just creamed both Kiba and Sasuke and made it look easy. Iruka, however, was suspicious. I barely even saw her get out of the way of those punches. Then she hit Kiba at least a dozen times after catching a full force punch without budging. I bet none of these kids even saw more than 2 hits. I barely saw all of them. And the force required to kick someone the way she did. When does she get this strong and fast? Winner Hinata, Iruka called out before going to check on the boys. Hinata went to them and whispered in their heads, "I am not even a tenth as strong as Naruto-kun. Remember that." Before walking over to the stands where Shuri enabled her seals to full strength before she sat down. Shikamaru had gotten curious about halfway through the fight. Kiba and Sasuke are arguably the best in class in Taijutsu, and she is picking them apart, he had thought. With that in mind, when Kiba was thrown from the ring, he subtly made his way over to him to see if he could get any clues. Upon reaching both of them, as Sasuke had joined Kiba, he noticed that his clothes had small rips, where he had seen her hit him. This meant she was twisting her hand very fast when she hit him. But he also noticed several places that looked the same, but that he couldn't remember seeing her hit. Sasuke wasn't looking much better, and was having a hard time breathing. Then he saw her approach. Channeling chakra into his ears, he listened into what she had to say. "I am not even a tenth as strong as Naruto-kun. Remember that." It took all he had not to react. Hinata hadn't even looked like she was trying, and she said Naruto was more than 10 times stronger. After racking his brain, and coming up with no logical explanation for everything he had seen and heard today, he could only mutter troublesome. Hanabi had told her father what happened that night. He only smiled, and told her she now trained the same way as Naruto, so that was to be expected. This had confused Hanabi. Naruto lost to everyone except the civilian children. Then it hit her. So did Hinata. Hinata always held back against her. She never made her wins easy. No. Hanabi had to work hard for every victory. Hinata had been doing just enough to make Hanabi push herself and keep her confidence. She was unsure if she should be grateful or insulted. She made the choice to go and speak to Hinata. Hinata's apartment next day. Hanabi knocked on the door, getting a response to enter. "Hanabi. Why are you here?" "We normally have dinner on the weekends," asked Hinata, slightly confused. Not that she wasn't happy to see her, but things with the clan had made coming to visit during the week hard. Hanabi just stood there in silence for a few moments before asking, "Why do you hold back against not only me, but everyone else?" Hinata just sighed. She knew her actions would have repercussions, but this was sooner than she wanted to deal with them. "Sit down, this could take a while," Hinata said, gesturing to her couch. "You are not completely aware of what is going on in your clan, are you?" she asked, as much as she stated. Hanabi flinched at hearing your clan. "Sorry Hanabi, but it's the truth. I am never allowed to be part of that clan again or even step foot in the compound." Hanabi looked like she was going to tear up, so Hinata decided that it would be best to get away from that subject. But moving on. The other main house wants to be the only one. They were not happy when Kachan came back. Kicking me out got them halfway to being able to declare one of their children as heir. If I were to beat you constantly, they would call into question your strength. That's why I hold back. I make you work for it each time, so you must continue to push yourself, but never quite win, so you can remain in good standing. Because if they manage to depose you, as heirs you will be branded, and I doubt you will be as lucky as me to get away from them. Hanabi just sat there wide-eyed. She couldn't believe her sister was still trying to protect her. It gave her even more respect for her sister than she had before, for trying to keep the brand off her head. That reminded her of something else she had been wanting to ask for a while. "That reminds me. How come when they try to activate your seal nothing happens?" Hinata had really been hoping to avoid this question, but knew she would have to answer eventually. Looking at Hanabi in the eyes, she debated what to say before. "I'm sorry Hanabi, but I can't tell you. All I can tell you is it happened when the elder tried to kill me with the pain seal, rather than the death seal." Hanabi flinched. She had been told what happened, and couldn't imagine how much that must have hurt. After that they turned the conversation to less serious things. The rest of the school year was rather quiet, with none of the girls even willing to fight Hinata. They would simply forfeit at the start no matter what Iruka or his new assistant Mizuki would try to say. This quickly propelled her to the top spot for Kunoichi, and second overall. Her sister never did get matched with her after that. She figured her father had something to do with it. Kano has front gates 2.5 months later. 15 days after the end of the war in Kiri, and Wolf's ordered return, 2 figures could be seen approaching Konoha. One wore an Anbu mask that looked like a wolf wearing a black cloak, and another with spiky blonde hair and an orange jumpsuit. He was now about 5'6", having finally hit a growth spurt. After an uneventful check-in, they headed to the Hokage's office. Naruto noticed that he was getting both glasses and confused looks. Not sure what that was about, he filed it away to ask his Jiji. Hokage's office. Hiruzen was again battling his fiercest foe. Paperwork. It seemed like no matter what he did, the beast would not go down. At least no permanently. It was in the middle of contemplating using a fireball to burn it all that a knock came. He spoke loud enough for the person to hear. His face brightened a little when he saw it was Naruto, and Naruto. His sweat dropped a little at this act that was once again being put on. "So, Naruto, how was the inspection?" You could practically hear the air quotes, but appearances had to be kept. "Good. I learned a lot. I am probably stronger than anyone in the academy," he said, rubbing the end of his nose. Hiruzen already knew this was true, but still chuckled. "I guess we shall see. Now you better run along." I know you have some friends who are just dying to see you. Alright, catch you later, Gigi. We should have ramen sometime. He started to walk towards the door before he stopped. Hey, I have a question first. On our way here people were looking at me like they were confused. What gives? Well, Harrison started. Some of the civilians started a rumor that you had been banished, and despite all the evidence to the contrary, it seems that most believed it. The old Hokage looked a bit amused and annoyed to see Naruto just give him a doff-back look. After shaking his head, he just walked out. After leaving the building, and finding somewhere he wouldn't be seen, he dispelled. Back in the office things were a bit more serious. Wolf, now that you have had some time, I would like a full report on the war in Kiri. Hi. He launched into a minute-by-minute account after making sure that only he and the 3 Anbu he trusted were there. In the end, I ended up using my new jutsu to kill the 3 tails, and in turn kill Yigur. After making sure everyone was safe and the injured were cared for, I left. Harrison had simply been stunned. He was relatively sure he would no longer be able to beat Wolf in a fight. Hearing that he had actually killed the 3 tails was just insane. What could possibly kill a Biju? It's called Raiden. Kirin. It uses electricity from high in the atmosphere to create a lightning dragon, several orders of magnitude more powerful than a standard one. It would be classified somewhere above highest rank. Noted. Keep that one to yourself. We don't need anyone else like that. Harrison said almost in a daze. Highest rank was a high, as it went for him to say this one might be above it was scary. I believe you have earned a vacation for a while. I have to leave for Suna in a few days. You will be off duty until I return. Dismiss. Hi Hokage-sama. Wolf responded, as he swirled away, appearing in his apartment, and going to change. He started thinking over how to talk to Anko and Hinata about his feelings. Anko's age difference made him nervous, and Hinata had been his friend for so long he didn't want to take a risk of losing her. He got so caught up in his thought that he didn't realize what time it was until she heard voices coming down the hall. He recognized them as the 2 he had just been thinking of. With Hinata and Anko. Hinata and Anko were returning from training since Hinata was on break from school, and Anko didn't have any missions today. As they went over areas that needed improvement, they were oblivious to Naruto and that he had returned. They knew he would be back any day now, and were very excited. After saying their goodbyes, they went to head to their apartments to change when a sound caught their attention. It was coming from Naruto's apartment as they looked towards his door. It opened, and to their surprise it was empty. Thinking they were just hearing this, they turned around. Standing there was the one person neither could get out of their thoughts. Hey girls, I'm back. Before the boy could utter another word in a hug so tight he couldn't breathe. Air was all he managed to wheeze out, but it was heard. The girls turned to look, and saw he was actually turning blue. After being released he caught his breath, and just stared at them. He didn't even know what to say. It seemed that a year had changed much. Hinata was taller at about 5'2", and had filled out some, while Anko was now only 2 inches taller than he was. Breaking out of his stupor he embraced both of them. I miss you so much, he told them. Then his stomach decided to growl, making him blush a little. Hinata giggled, and Anko just smirked. So, who wants to have dinner? My treat. After making a quick meal, and sitting down to eat, they did some catching up. Hinata told him about how the academy had been, and how she had lost her temper with Kiba and Sasuke. That just made him laugh. Anko went over the minor things that happened in the village. Suffice to say it was basically life as usual, except that about 2 weeks ago 3 Genin teams left for the Chunin exams in Suna. Naruto told them of his training, and how he was only able to get 95% done. When they asked when, he just told them he couldn't say. They both saw the look of sadness and regret. Something had happened. That they knew for sure. After dinner, and a few hours of catching up, he said his goodbyes, and told them he needed to rest after such a long trip. Cleaning dinner he took a shower, and went to bed. Later that night both Hinata and Anko awoke to the sound of screaming. Both bolting out of bed, and to the hallway. Each seeing the other realized it was coming from Naruto's apartment. Using Haki, Hinata unlocked his door, and both made a beeline for his bedroom. What they found was Naruto tossing and turning, covered in sweat, and screaming. Acting quickly, they grabbed him, and shook him awake. When his eyes opened they were his Shinomi, and instantly locked on the 2 of them before turning blue again. Naruto collapsed on the bed when they let him go out of shock for him, activating his eyes on them. He lay there catching his breath, and put his forearm over them. Sorry about that. He spoke slowly. Naruto-kun, what happened? Asked Anko, as she was the first one to recover. One of the missions I had to do while I was gone went sideways. He told them about what Yigur did, and how he had to fight an army. Anko just nodded, understanding that sometime this like that would happen, and a guilty conscience was hard to avoid. Hinata just had tears on her face, and held him tight. Neither left to go back to their bed for the night, and Naruto, for the first time in 2 weeks, got a decent night's sleep. The next morning when Naruto woke up he found his head on something warm and soft. Not knowing what it was, but also not wanting to get up, he rubbed and nestled his head into the softness a little harder. While trying to figure out what he was laying on, he heard someone clear their throat. "Comfy, are we?" Came a bit of a sickly sweet voice. Naruto failed to notice the tone. "Yes, very," he mumbled, still failing to grasp the situation. It was about this time Hinata woke up. She found her pillow moving. Sitting up, she realized it was Naruto's side just below his ribs. Not understanding the short exchange, she sat up to see what was going on. She blushed a deep red and suppressed a giggle. She was watching Naruto rub the side of his face into the right side of Anko's chest. Anko had a look somewhere between pure outrage and mortified embarrassment. Anko was also having a small sense of deja vu. "Naruto, what do you think you are doing?" she asked in the same tone, only this time Naruto started to catch on, but it only increased his confusion. "Trying to sleep. My pillow is so much softer than I remember," he said, a bit more awake. "That's not your pillow," Anko said with a swift drop. Hinata by this point is now failing to suppress her giggle. She is now trying to suppress a full-on laugh. "Whatever it is, I like it better than my pillow." Hearing him saw that Anko's face goes into full Hinata blush mode, and Hinata finally loses her battle not to laugh out loud. Hearing Hinata's laugh made Naruto finally open his eyes. After surveying where he was for a second, he sat up so fast he was a blur. Naruto immediately started to apologize, but Anko just held her hand to silence him. "It was a misunderstanding, and you didn't mean any harm. Let's just drop it for now." Naruto just nodded, glad he would be allowed to live for a while longer, and Hinata had finally calmed herself down enough to stop laughing. Naruto dared to speak, trying to make it less awkward now that he realized he had been using Anko's breast as a pillow and was sleeping between Hinata and Anko, and neither had gotten out of the bed yet. "So, what was the plan for today? Yuji gave me 2 weeks off because he will be in Suna, and I know the academy is on break, so me and Hinata-chan are free. What about you, Anko-chan?" he finished off. "I don't have any missions until the day after tomorrow, so I am free," she replied. "Great. I want to see how strong both of you have become," Naruto told them with a big grin. "That sounds like a good idea, but we have to talk about something first." Hinata started looking at Anko to see that she understood. Anko nodded and motioned for her to continue. "Naruto-kun, how do you feel about us?" Naruto looked a little confused, not quite grasping what Hinata was saying. Seeing this, she continued. "I know we are friends, but do you ever feel like we could be more than friends?" The confusion disappeared from his face and was replaced by a look of indecisiveness. After taking a moment to clear his head, he figured being honest was the only thing to do. "I actually gave this a lot of thought while I was away. The more I thought about it, the worse I felt. I realized I could never choose between you two. The only thing I can do is be your friend, hope you can understand, and maybe find happiness with somebody who can devote themselves to just you." As Naruto spoke, a range of expressions went across their faces. From joy when he said he thought about them to frowns, as he said he wanted them to find someone else. It slowly changed to smirk when they realized where he was going with it. Naruto just kept his head down the whole time he spoke, not being able to bear looking at their faces. Hinata raised his chin and smiled at him. "We were hoping for an answer like that." Naruto's face fell for just a moment before he hid it, thinking they had both found someone and moved on. "Naruto-kun, are you aware that you are the last of 2 separate clans, and the last of the main bloodline of another?" Naruto just nods, still holding on to his mask, while his heart just feels more and more hollow. "When he becomes public, the council will more than likely force you to take more than one wife. Even more so if they find out about your eyes." Naruto was barely listening, but he had known that his future may not be so great for a while now. Being forced in loveless relationships all for the sake of duty. The women he would end up with would all be about money, power, and status. He couldn't imagine someone he truly cared about wanting to be in that situation. "Naruto-kun," Anko said this time, "neither of us would ever make you choose. 2 months ago, we were talking, and Hinata-chan brought up this little law called the Clan Restoration Act. I know I am quite a bit older than you, but you're the only man who has always treated me right. I asked Hinata-chan if she was willing to share. Even if I have to wait until you are recognized for your heritage, I don't care." Before Naruto could respond, Hinata spoke up. "Naruto-kun, before you think it would be unfair, just know that I would never feel right leaving Anko-chan to herself just so I could have you. She has done so much for me, and there is now one I would rather share you with than her." Naruto just remained speechless for a minute before he processed everything, and did the only thing for her. Hugging both of them. "I love you. Both of you." "I love you too," they both said in unison. "Now how about some breakfast, and you show me how much you learned while I was gone?" Both just smiled and nodded. Thanks for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.